Dr. Laura Sicola, welcome to What's Possible.
Thank you so much, Eileen. Looking forward to the conversation.
I am as well. I cannot wait actually for this one because, as you know, we work with senior leaders all the time, and communication is one of the key things that we work with leaders around.
Sure.
And you really can't get through life without, well, I guess you could get through life without being a good communicator, but you're probably not going to get through life as effectively as you might
It'll
with
be a much bumpier journey for sure.
Yes. So I think we all can benefit from this, and I certainly know I can. So today we are going to be talking about 5 communication blunders that can stall your career, and of course, the consequences of having these blunders. Hopefully, with that, we will also learn how not to have those stumbles and falls and how to get yourself on the right course. But before we dive into that, of course, we need to get to know you. So I did a little bit of sleuthing, and I know you are not a gardener. I know you like cooking. So give
Very
us
true.
something else about yourself that you just love doing outside of helping us become stronger communicators.
Oh, I love to travel. I love to eat, which goes hand in hand with the cooking part. And I love foreign languages. I'm just always trying to work on some language or other. And I've gotten my 9-year-old into it. He's obsessed with Duolingo and a couple of languages.
Oh,
So it's just fun. It's another puzzle, another way to connect with people. So it's always on the phone in the background.
do you find, given your background with communication, that learning other languages and correct pronunciation and how you present yourself in a foreign language comes more naturally to you?
I think it's chicken or the egg. I've always been fascinated by foreign languages from the time I was little. I've always wanted to, and I think I've always had a something of an affinity for it, an aptitude. Which, and of course, you like things that you're good at, and you're good at things that that you like, or at least
Yeah.
tends to go that direction. And I've so being good at it early and having early success then does promote it. You to study more intentionally and to look deeper into certain things. So it has fed the career, and the career has fed the skill and the insight as well. But yes, those little details, the nuances, the pronunciation, the gestures and facial expressions that go along with the
Yeah.
language beyond the vocabulary and the grammar, when you can start to home in on those little micro expressions and those little nonverbal nuances, it's amazing how big a leap that those details can help you make to really connecting with somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I think there's so much to language. Well, obviously, there's so much to language besides our words. And so being able to connect, like you said, with the facial or gestures or what have you is part of that
Yes.
connection.
And it's funny because
So
people often are afraid to feel inauthentic by taking on some of those, motions and things that they feel like they're and no, that's how they naturally speak. If you're going to do the language, the words, you also need to embody the rest of it. It's your persona in their physical context. I did a conversation. I was talking with somebody I met at a networking event who was Japanese by birth, been here for 20 years, and I lived over there for a few years. So we shifted from in English to just basic conversation in Japanese. But even though my language is very rusty at this point, within the first sentence, she burst out laughing and she's like, "Oh my gosh, you just totally shifted. Your whole persona just went Japanese." And she meant that as a compliment. It wasn't
yeah.
mocking, but it was just like I didn't expect to see such a complete shift. And it's not acting; it's just
Yeah.
it's choice, right? It's expanding your identity to be able to connect more effectively with an ever widening sphere of influence. And that's really what we all want, isn't it?
Yeah, I love that. Well, and I remember listening to something that I think it was on one of the podcast episodes, and you were talking about how we talk differently even to our friends, our
Yes.
family, at work. And
Yes.
it's part of how our body language. I have a very close group of childhood friends. When I'm together with them, it's a whole different Eileen. It's the same person, but how
Yes.
we communicate is totally different than, say, when I'm with a client. It's a
Yes.
very, yeah, you
Yes.
Yep, get into the spirit of it all and just feel it with every cell in your body, I think,
Sure.
differently.
Yes, and that's
Yeah.
what I refer to as your prismatic voice. And when you meaning, when you've seen those little crystal sun catchers hanging from the kitchen window or the rear view
Yeah.
mirror in the car and the sun hits it and then the little rainbow kind of comes out the other side.
Right.
In that same way, we have that full spectrum of colors inside of us. And here on your podcast, you're in your coach podcast authority voice. You can call that your yellow or whatever color you like. But then when you're with those girlfriends, you go totally blue on it
Right.
and you're a lot more casual and more flamboyant or more you use some
Yeah.
choice words that you might not want to use on the air or all sorts of different things, right? If you're a sports fan and your team's doing really well or really just tanking for the day, a whole different side might come out. And it's okay. Maybe that's your blue. It's all part of you. You just know that in this context versus that context, you want to tone up some of those colors and tone down
Yeah.
some of the other ones
Yeah.
because it's going to help you connect more effectively with that audience for your intended purpose. And so you own all of the colors, you just make strategic choices in the moment.
Yeah. I love that image too. So share with our audience before we do jump into these five communication blenders how you arrived in this space of expertise and authority.
Well, I'm a teacher by long background. I joke that I started out teaching elementary school. I won't tell you how many decades ago, and then high school, and then college, and then executives. Why? Because I have to keep teaching older students, so I stay looking younger to them. That's the only way to do it. But I went back for my PhD in educational linguistics, a cognitive linguistic field, because I wanted to understand how we learn better. What is it
Mm,
about the way that we speak? And teaching is the same as explaining, is the same as presenting, is the same as leading a meeting. You're trying to convey an idea in a way that helps the listener get it. And so,
yeah,
what is it about the way that we speak that makes what we say go in one ear and come out the other, or go in and stick? And if you can
yeah,
make it stick, how do you make it do something more useful? How do you determine what it is that creates the gap between what you think you said and what they think they heard? And when you start to understand these pieces, it's amazing how the world kind of comes together a little bit differently and in a much more empowering way. So now my mission is to help leaders understand those components, those mechanisms better so that they can translate their genius and their expertise and close the gap between that and their influence for others.
yeah. Oh, love. And for those who are not already familiar with Dr. Laura, is it okay that I call you Dr. Laura or Dr. Sicola?
Absolutely. No,
Any
Laura,
any of the
absolutely.
above?
First name,
Okay.
yes, all good.
Okay.
Whichever makes you happy,
Um,
but yes.
check out her Instagram. Your Instagram's fantastic because it really gives really quick nuggets for those leaders on how to be more effective, how to be influential. What's the difference between expertise and authority? I loved that Instagram post. So you have a great skill at taking this huge body of knowledge that you've accumulated over the years of teaching and going back to school and distilling it into a very quick nugget that somebody can take away. So, this is a quick promo, not a paid promo, but a quick promo to send you over to Instagram so that you can follow Dr. Sicola and see some of these tips that you can get. But now we are going to stay on the podcast. And so don't go to Instagram yet. Stay on the podcast, and we are going to talk about the five blunders that could stall your career. So, what is blunder number one?
Blunder number one is about getting stuck in the expert's curse. We
Uh,
all tend in that direction because we are good at what we love, as we mentioned before. And so everybody out there is an expert in their field, whether it's pharmaceuticals or as a researcher or finance or IT, et cetera. And the problem is when we get that expert, we forget what isn't obvious or clear
mm,
or interesting or necessary or already known to everybody else. You have the burden of speaking to mortals or muggles, depending on your perspective. So, how do you translate that? How do you understand? How do you discern or decipher or distill what they actually need to know instead of just using the fire hose method
mm.
of communication, which is open mouth, turn on fire hose, drown your audience in details and data way more than they care about, and then wonder why they don't love you for it and ask for more.
Yeah.
That gets us stuck. Data dumping, jargon, trying too hard to sound smart with lots of information.
Mhm.
So, the consequence of that is that you do sound smart, but you don't sound strategic and they don't process what you said. All they get out of the conversation is you sound smart, but not useful. And
Mm,
that's key.
yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting because I almost see it as a downside of being passionate too. You're
Yes.
so passionate about the topic, which I find
Yep.
myself when I talk about well being, the science of well being, or even helping people navigate change. I get so excited, but I have to
Yes.
remember exactly what you're saying that what is what does this person, whether it's one person or if I'm speaking to a larger group, what is going to be most useful? Oh, I like that
Absolutely.
a lot.
And,
Yeah.
it's something that I had to learn myself because, as I mentioned before, I came out of education, I came out of academia. I didn't rise through the ranks of corporate and then shift into coaching. I'm coming out of the hallowed halls of whatever it is. They, for 7 years, getting my PhD, they beat into my head how to talk, how to write, how to think
Yeah.
like an academic, to be able to publish those kinds of books. So when I shifted into consulting, training, etc., I thought, well, this is my superpower, right? This is my keep. Isn't that why you're hiring me? Because I have this skill set and this credential and background. And they went, yeah, we give you the benefit of the doubt for that. Now, could you stop? Just stop talking like that. Stop with all the background. Stop with all the big words. We got it. Now, could you just be like simplify it for us? Tell us the main idea, make it more interesting and less technical. We trust that you understand what's behind it and do more of this. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you want me to take off my superhero cape? That's
Yeah.
that's my superpower. How can I just
Right.
leave it there and still be useful for you?" And that's what I had to learn. And so that's now one of
Yeah.
actually my most popular trainings for teams is called Breaking the Expert's Curse. I've been there,
Yeah.
I've done it, I get it, and I'll lead you through it too. It's hard and it's necessary.
Yeah. Well, and I love how I think it was on one of your Instagram posts you distinguish between expertise and authority.
Yes.
And expertise is sharing, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you said sharing what you know versus authority where you influence people to do something about this. And if you get stuck in expertise, then it can land flat.
Yes. Yes, because
Yeah.
the expertise, okay, I understand that you know what you're talking about, but I don't necessarily know what to do with it or how you want me to apply it or the relevance for this particular context. Authority is when I now trust you to guide me in using that information to make my life easier, to make my job more effective, to make me better at what I do. That's a very different space.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, love. Okay, blunder number 2.
So the second blunder is some I think is really about when some let me try that in English. When some people are present in meetings but not participatory.
Mm,
And this tends to happen for one of two reasons. Either because A, there are people who are very reflective thinkers and yes, there's discussion going on in the meeting, but they like to sit back and they like to just listen to everything, digest everything, take it all in. They're not going to jump in and interject. And then they kind of want to go back to their office or back to their desk and think about it some more and then deliberate what they want to say or what questions they might want to ask. And then eventually they'll follow up either with the leader or with the team or whoever it is by email. Or maybe they'll go find them afterwards in a conversation one-on-one. But they don't contribute in real time. And the other people who do that are those where it's not so much about their processing time preferences, but it's more about a confidence thing. They're afraid to speak up in the meeting. They don't like to be the center of attention. They don't want people to look at them. They don't want to say something that isn't the perfect answer immediately on their own. So they hold back. And either
yeah.
way, think about it in this world of AI that we're moving into, where everything is instant, 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 fast. You're doing the recording and poof, 10 seconds after you're done, it has come up with all of your takeaways. It's distilled all the information, made the recommendation, all this. If you didn't contribute to that conversation in real time, you have officially given no input. And a day later might as well be a year later because it's too late. And yes, leaders are going to have to recognize that dynamic, but you can't expect others to be taking care of you as a leader if you know that one of those situations is your rationale for holding back in the moment. A, if you are the person who needs the processing time, then in the moment you need to speak up and say, I will get back to you in 24 hours. I need
Mm,
time to think about this and this. I do have something to say, but I need you to wait. So it helped me manage my expectations. Don't just make me sit there and wonder forever, well, are they going to say something? Because if they don't tell me otherwise, I'm just going to assume not. And if you're
yeah.
someone who just holds back because you're shy, there's imposter syndrome, there's whatever else going, you got to, I'm going to say this in a little tongue in cheek way, got to put on your big girl, big boy shoes and step up and find your voice. Because if you are afraid to hold back, what you're communicating to those in the room is you have no value to add. You are taking up
Mhm.
space, but not contributing. And so you don't need to be there. They'll send you the notes afterward. And that is not a brand that you want to build that says you deserve more opportunity, a higher level position. So be careful about what the silence is communicating to others, rightfully or wrongfully. What's the
Yeah.
brand you want to create? Intentionally create it in real time.
Yeah, I really like because I was thinking about, what we would consider more quiet leaders or introverted leaders. And I love what you said in terms of still put your voice out there of I'm processing there is a lot here and I'm starting to make some sense of it and tomorrow I will send this over or in an hour after I have a minute of quiet time I'll get this back to you so it shows that you're engaged. It shows that your brain is ticking because I it's a tough call. I just was on vacation actually, and having conversations with some very senior leaders who I was on this trip with. And we were talking about AI and how there isn't the same time to be making decisions and to lollygag and this and that. Things have to go like that super
Yep.
quick. At the same time, it is hard for some people to have they wanna be thoughtful, they wanna be thorough or
Hmm.
have the information they need,
Hmm.
and I think I almost feel like the pendulum swing this pendulum is going in the direction of make quick decisions right away
Yes.
and deal with the fallout after, and I
Yes.
almost wonder if it's gonna eventually swing back a little bit because I think we can't constantly be making thoughtless decisions just because we need to act fast. So I
Right.
think that's gonna cost us in the long run, but it
Yes.
feels like that's the energy right now in organizations is go, 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 go. And I don't know that we can sustain that and be as productive, efficient, profitable if we're constantly going without thinking. So I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Oh, agree 100%. So to the pendulum, you're absolutely right, always swings in one direction or another. Right now it's but look how fast we can do things with AI.
Yes.
And just because it's fast doesn't mean it's the right decision. It may be a viable decision. It may not be the best decision because we haven't taken into account enough time or enough input or enough perspectives, etc. So there's a fine balance between them. Those who tend to speak less in general are going to need to manage other people's expectations. Are you because
Yeah.
I've been on teams where there are people who just don't contribute. That's just
Yeah.
not their way. So you
Mhm.
can't expect others to read your mind and
Right.
know, are you going to eventually share something or are you just waiting for instructions and you're going to go execute? If so, okay, let me know. And that also tells me that you are not interested in leadership. You're interested in participating as a team member. Execution is your game. That's awesome. We need people to do that. But I'm not going to expect you to lead because you're not contributing to the decisions of the leadership. So, help me understand how I should read you. I can't, you don't want me to project incorrectly onto your silence. So
Yeah.
I love to happen to remember the movie Jerry Maguire
Yeah.
said the
Yeah. Yeah.
help
Help
me
me
help
help
you.
you.
That's the one. Help me
That's
help
my
you.
favorite line. I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's so good. Well, and this conversation makes me think back to a podcast episode I did with Rebecca Hines. She wrote the book on meetings. It
Mm,
is such a good episode. If people have not listened to that one, go back. It's with Rebecca Hines, and her book is on meetings, and she's fabulous. It's an outstanding book. And she talks about both getting rid of meetings that you don't need, but also who
Mm,
needs to be in the meetings. And when I hear you
yes.
talking about this, as we're starting to think who needs to be in the meetings, if you're not contributing, that you're one of the people who's not gonna be in the meetings, most
Yes.
likely. And
Yes.
so, and are you losing information by not being there? And are you losing a voice and influence? So,
And there's a lot of
yeah.
reasons for it. I wrote a blog just maybe a week or two ago about my predictions for who AI is most likely to replace. And if you're showing that you're not contributing to the input that AI is using to make some of these things, then yeah, you're most likely going to be the one who's quickly replaced, at least in part. Some of your tasks, some of your responsibilities, AI will take them over because you're not showing that you're contributing in that particular way. And that's a scary thought.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, number 3.
All right. The third one is when you let your nervous system lead the meeting,
Mm,
because executive presence is a lot about understanding how to navigate reaction time, about how to handle stress, about how to deal with the uncomfortable, those kinds of situations. But a lot of people tend to be very emotionally reactive, whether you show it on your face or not. And the fact is, when you think about the alignment between words, voice, and body language, that verbal, vocal, and visual triangle,
yeah,
which is really the what you say and how you say it, before people have a chance to process your complete message meaning based on the entirety of the message from start to finish, they're already reading your body language and they're reading your voice tonality and they're inferring an awful lot about what you feel, what you believe, your sense of stuff. And if you seem to be really nervous or really angry about something, it almost doesn't matter what words you use because they
yeah,
already have taken in your interpretation. And
yeah.
it's then your battle to fight to undo that if that's not what you want to project. I had a client that I worked with who she was vying for a senior leadership promotion, and we realized that one of the tricks I had her do, and here's a recommendation for everybody. She was on a Teams meeting with her, preparing for it, and I had her take her phone and open it up to her video camera and just prop it up against her screen. So when it was her time to present, to just record herself to be able to go back and watch it afterwards. And what she realized is that because she was presenting up to the senior leadership team, high stakes, nerves were kicking in. She's like, "Oh my gosh, Laura, I watched the video afterwards and I don't know who that person was, but I wouldn't have promoted her either. She looked like
Oh,
she was gonna cry. She looked like
oh,
she was so nervous, her face." It was like she didn't realize that she was
yeah,
telegraphing her nerves. So when you're looking to promote somebody, you want someone who's got the confidence, who's got the clarity, who's got the conviction. And she didn't seem to have all that. She had the data, okay, but not she didn't project that authority that you want to know is going to
yeah.
be taking that permanent seat. So we got that under control fast. And then she managed to get that promotion a couple of months later. But that was a really big stopgap for her.
Yeah. Tell us just one thing or 2 things that
Yeah.
you did to get that under control.
Awareness, that's the most important part. She didn't even
Yeah.
know she was doing it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Most of us, Eileen, how often have you taken a selfie video, just something to send when you're on vacation, send it to a couple of friends or to post on Instagram or to send a birthday message to a friend? You take a quick 10, 15, 30-second message, you stop it, you watch it back, you play it instantly back and you go, "Oh my God, that sounded so much better in my head. Oh, what was I doing with my face? I look ridiculous. What was I doing?" And you suddenly critique all these things and you're going,
Okay.
"How is it possible that I just did that video 10 seconds ago and I was watching myself as
Right.
I was doing it?" And I did not realize until I played the video back afterwards all the stuff that made me go, "Huh,
Oh.
yeah, no, let's delete, and re-record," right? So there's so many things that we don't realize in the moment that we're doing. Record yourself 60 seconds. It's all you need. 60 seconds, just the opening minute of how you begin to see the first impression that you make. And if you sit there and go, "Oh, okay,
Oh.
note to self, if nothing else, got to work on that opener before I go into this big meeting or I have this one-on-one with my employee or whatever it is. Watch yourself on video. 60 seconds is all you need to get super clear on what you're doing that is working really well for you and what is absolutely not, and how you need to get out of your own way on that front.
That is such and it's something so easy for us to do too.
Yes.
And I know listeners might be cringing already thinking, "I don't wanna watch myself on video," but
Oh,
do
you
it.
never like it.
No,
Yeah, let's get that
exactly.
right
No.
straight. You will never look, I go back anytime I have to do a show, a podcast, a talk someplace, I record it and I go back and I'll watch at least a few minutes here and there to see how certain pieces landed. I never learned to love staring at myself on video or listening to myself in these podcast recordings. But I do love the value that I get out of watching it because I see what works and I
Yeah,
know what I can continue to use. And I see what it's like, that needs some tweaking, Laura. All right, let's go back and clean that up for next time. It's the only way to get clear on what you're doing. And I tell my clients all the time, I cannot coach you until you see and hear what I see and hear. And
yeah,
the only way to do that is with a video that you are watching after you're done talking. You cannot accurately evaluate or assess yourself in real time as you're talking. It is not cognitively possible. Got to do it.
yeah. That absolutely makes sense. Well, and you think about it with an athlete when they're training for something, oftentimes they'll bring a mirror so you can watch your form because a coach can say your shoulders up or this or that, but seeing it all of a sudden it shifts how
Yes.
we view. Okay. So we are getting to the end, but we've got to get these last two in.
All right.
So what is 4 and what is 5?
Number 4 is confusing authenticity with rigidity. We just
Mm,
talked a moment ago about the prismatic voice and knowing that you've got all those colors in your spectrum. A lot of people are unaware of the fact that they naturally shift in different contexts and they don't always talk the same way to every single audience. But at work, we're very concerned with authenticity, which is wonderful, but we hold ourselves back by too narrowly defining it as boxes. This is me.
mm,
That's not me. Black and white, that's all there is to it. And when we do that, we don't realize, no, if you want to now have influence with this new group, maybe you're in finance and you got to talk to IT, or you're shifting from this industry to that industry, or there's a whole new client that's very different culturally or philosophically or whatever it is, you're going to need to adjust a little bit. Figure out what parts of different colors in your spectrum need to come forth, or maybe you need a new hue. Maybe there's something that you
yeah,
haven't learned yet. I didn't speak Japanese. I had to learn to speak Japanese. It was not naturally part of my repertoire, but I chose to find it and include it so that I could have more access in that space. So learning to not see that as being inauthentic just because I'm not as good at it, I'm not as comfortable at it, that's not inauthenticity. The desire to connect is authentic. And so we want to make sure that
yeah.
you're asking yourself, who's my audience? What do they need from me so that they can understand what I need them to hear in a way that they
Mhm.
can hear it? We don't want that, well, she's too blunt, she's too roundabout, she's too this or that. Okay, what do they need? How can I adjust?
Yeah. Excellent. All right. And number 5, the grand finale.
Last but not least, Eileen, is the blunder is listening to respond instead of listening to lead. And most of us are terrible listeners. We've already made up our minds. We don't want to hear something that we're not going to like. We just want people to listen to us. We all want to feel heard and understood. We just don't want to reciprocate that gift to others. And the analogy that I use is that, do you remember ever playing or watching videos or something of kids on the playground playing double Dutch jump rope?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The 2 ropes spinning, and if you've ever been a jumper, you watch the rope spin and you're standing on the outside and there's this kind of
Yeah.
stance that you do, this rocking back and forth,
Yeah.
and you're waiting for the perfect moment when the ropes are open and you can jump right in. That's how most people listen. They're watching the other person's lips flap, 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 flap,
Yeah.
flap, flap. And they're just sitting there gauging, waiting for their moment when they can jump in and respond and cut off the other people. We listen to interrupt. We listen to be heard. We don't listen to hear. And so we come across as being defensive, as being a little self-centered, as not being empathetic, as not being supportive, being too assumptive. and we're trying to solve without understanding. So, people may comply with what you say, but they're not fully going to trust you. They're not going to respect you because they don't feel trusted or respected. That is a reciprocal thing. So, you want to make sure that you allow people to have their say, let them finish their point, feed back to them something along the lines of, let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly. This is your concern and this is your point, that both the content and the intent. Now, I'm not saying that you should just let them babble on and on and on. If they are somebody who stream of consciousness rambles all over the place, keep them corralled a little bit. And you can say, sorry to interrupt, but you're starting to lose me in the details or on this particular tangent. Can we get back to this point? Help me understand, help me focus, help me with this. And, keep them, get the blinders on the horse, so to speak. You don't have to let them
Yeah.
run all over the place, but do let them finish a point. And I think
Yeah.
that helps.
Yeah. It's such a good point. I actually was just listening to a podcast with Brene Brown and Adam
Oh, I
Grant, and
love her.
they were talking exactly about this, about listening for the sake of listening and not just waiting. And it was more around forgiveness and apologies, because
Yes.
oftentimes we're waiting to either share our point of view or to somehow contribute to that piece of the conversation, instead of just listening and taking in what the other person has to say.
Yes.
But I do have to thank you for bringing up the double dutch. You brought me back to Scripps Elementary School about,
Nice.
in 4th grade, 5th grade, I could just see myself on the playground, jumping in and waiting. I love that analogy. That's fantastic. What would you say, just before we end this, is a tip for doing that? If somebody's thinking, ouch, that's me, I'm constantly waiting to speak, or when someone's talking and I don't know that I'm the best listener. What is a easy technique for that?
Take notes, preferably with a pen and
Mm,
pencil, as opposed to on the computer. Because if you're typing on the computer when somebody else is talking, if you're face to face in the same room, I should say. If you're on a video conference, that's a little bit different. But if there's something that you want to interject, write it down. Make a note for yourself.
yeah.
So, because when you're trying to just hold it in your head, your brain is having a hard time splitting the attentional resources. And if you're trying
Mhm.
to not forget what this particular point is that you want to make, you're really not fully present and available to listen to what they're saying. So jot yourself a note real quick and then go back to listening. And it allows you can do that many different points as you listen, because you may realize that either by the time you've let them finish talking, they've already answered one of your previous
Yeah.
questions. It just took them a little longer to get to it. And you may realize that you don't need to answer some of the other ones. You don't need to ask some of the others. And if nothing else, it allows you to prioritize. Maybe you wrote down 3 or 4 points that you wanted to make, but not in priority order, just in chronological order. And now you realize what you said, the last one you wrote, is actually the most important. So let's lead with that and then decide if you've got time for the rest. So making smart time priority decisions in how you respond is also going to make everybody's life, especially yours, a whole lot better.
All right. So we always end with one big takeaway. But for you, I'm going to say, I know you train people on giving TED Talks, and you say you get one idea and everything focuses around that one idea. So, what is
Yes.
your one big idea from this conversation that you want to leave our audience with?
I think for me and for everybody out there, the good news for all of this is that no matter how many of these blunders you had those moments where you saw yourself in them, the good news is that none of these blunders are character flaws. They're all just behavioral patterns. And once you see the pattern, you can choose a different one. And some of it may take a little bit of skilled training, some of it may take a little bit of coaching or a little bit of reading, but the awareness, the conscious awareness of it, is the first huge step to making that shift. And for some of them, just realizing that you've been doing it, you'll be able to make the change right away. And for others, now at least you know what path you want to walk on so that you get to where you want to be instead of staying where you've always been.
And what is possible when we learn how to communicate more effectively, more efficiently, more influentially?
Everything, frankly, not to be trite and cliche about it, but honestly, I am a full believer that 99% of all conflict in the world is because two people are looking at each other and saying, "You're not listening to me. You don't understand." And
Mm.
my mission is to fix that problem. So, to the extent that everyone can start to recognize what they're doing that is making it harder for others to understand us, and where we need to be better at trying to understand others, so much of the tension, so much of the conflict, so much of the mist and the fog evaporates and things can move forward a lot more smoothly. So, literally anything becomes possible when we communicate more intentionally and more effectively.
Wow. Dr. Laura Sicola, thank you so much for coming, sharing your experience, your authority, your expertise, all of it with the listeners of What's Possible. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. May I offer a gift to your listeners?
Please, yes.
So, for anybody who would like to figure out which of, if any, of these five blunders are something that are potholes on your journey, I have a 1-page checklist, a leadership blind spot checklist. And people, I'll give you the link. We can put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
People are welcome to download it. And it's steps you through this little activity. And there's a whole list, verbal, vocal, and visual things to look for that maybe you never thought about looking at before. And that'll help you go, that's why this person responded this way, or oh, that's why people think I'm this, or oh, yeah, I'm telegraphing that a little too much. But it's just lays everything out for you nice and easy and helps you get on the right path forward.
For our listeners, it will be in the show notes. Dr. Laura, thank you for sharing that with our audience. We will have that in the show notes for all of you to go head on over and see what blunders might be tripping you up and how do you get out of them. Thank you again for joining us on What's Possible.